All right, I'm Nick. Today we're going to spend some time, we're going to talk about kayak safety. There are a ton of new people getting into kayak fishing, joining the activity, spending time on the water. And when you have a ton of people join something like kayak fishing, there's a ton of inexperience there, right? And kayak safety often gets overlooked. Some people are super passionate about it, other people don't care. And if you're new to it, you're probably not getting the best information, or you're not even considering it, right? So we generated a list here, 10 kayak safety things. There's a rooster over there making noises, so maybe you hear him. We're gonna go through it 1 through 10. I'll use the list as a reference. We're gonna start off with always wear your life jacket or your personal flotation device. And we're actually gonna give this one away. This is an Onyx M24 CO2 pouch here. You have to install it, follow the directions. You guys can win this by just leaving a comment in the comment section, okay? But watch the whole video, a bunch of useful information, okay? That giveaway will be in the comment section only, all right? This is the one that I like to use. This is an M16. It's a belt pack, right? So it goes around your waist. You can loosen it, you can tighten it. So depending on, what size you are or what you're wearing, you can adjust it as needed. I like this because it's not in the way. I know a lot of guys have these huge, big, bulky ones. It'll be 100 degrees outside and they don't want to wear it because it's in the way. That's myself included, right? So this thing going offshore all the time, it's quick, it's easy. I can take it off when I'm done with it. I always just clip it to something right like this, toss it in there, toss it wherever. It doesn't go anywhere and I always have it. Now, there are 2 links in the description below. One is for this. It's actually on Amazon right now for 33% off. It's usually $100, it's $66, okay? So if you're looking for a life jacket, that's the one I use. I highly recommended it. I used this one for years. It is still a great life jacket. I just prefer the smaller platform, the smaller, takes up less area. It's more comfortable in my opinion. Still gonna give that away. The other link in the description is to join our email list. That list, we've been sending out monthly discounts. We're gonna do that all year. It's gone really, really well. We sent out a discount yesterday. If you are on that list, you got it. We've already sold a ton of that product. It's going very smoothly. If you're interested, that list is below. Now we'll move on to number 2. And number 2 is always check the weather, right? Check the weather forecast. If you're going offshore, you should be checking the surf report, whether you're using Magic Seaweed or Surfline or whatever you want to use. You need to use your resources to know, hey, maybe it's calm at 6 a.m., but at 9 it's gonna be rough. You need to use the weather app to see where the wind is sometimes, or maybe there's something on the radar that's coming. You need to be responsible and check that. Don't always just check it the night before. Oftentimes you'll wake up first thing in the morning and then whatever you looked at is completely different and you get yourself in a really bad spot. So that's number 2. Number 3 is always tell someone your float plan. And if you're not familiar with a float plan, sometimes like it really a term from whitewater rafting or canoeing, and it tells you they're gonna float a river, right? You should be telling someone, hey, I am launching here. A lot of you guys are married, have spouses, children, something. Tell someone, hey, I'm going to fish. I'm launching at this boat launch. Just give people a general idea of where you are. Hey, I should be back around lunch. Or I should be back around dinner. That stuff's important. You can go more detailed. Just don't go less detailed, okay? Someone should know where you're going. And if you change that plan, say you're going to point A and on the way that there's a detour, you decide to go fish a different lake or whatever, tell someone you're no longer at Lake A, so that way they can find you if something did happen to you, right? That rolls us in number 2. Number 4, if you want to tell someone you're changing your plans, you should always have some kind of communication, right? I use my cell phone. Going offshore, I know a lot of guys that they'll have their radios, which is cool. You can communicate with people who are nearby you. If you're going inshore, you're going fishing at a lake somewhere, maybe you live somewhere where offshore is not even an option, your phone's probably gonna suffice, it's gonna do the job, okay? You just want some way to reach out. Keep it somewhere where you can access it easily and it's not just gonna, fall off the kayak and disappear. They make a ton of different tethers and stuff like that, so you have it and you don't lose it, so it's there when you need it. That rolls us into number 5. Number 5 is to pack a dry bag, right? And we'll use the word dry bag loosely because I don't typically use a bag. I actually use a tackle box like this. Now, if it's cold, you should bring different things. We don't live in a very cold place. Obviously, it's Florida. But you should have some essentials that are gonna stay dry. They're gonna stay sealed up. And this one, just a tackle box. It has a rubber gasket in it. And you know, things that you should have in here, first aid kit. I got a little first aid kit, flashlight, if you're going at night, stuff like that. You need to plan for it. Now, I do know a lot of our cell phones have flashlights, so that helps out in that. But this is a little survival kit. It has a flare, nothing special, a little Leatherman. This is just a little first aid kit, has Band-Aids, been in here for years, they've never been opened, right? Just a rope in case you need to tow somebody. Just simple little things that it goes in this box, it lives in this box. I take this box, it's right there, it's on my kayak. If I go on the water, that box goes with me, regardless of what kayak that I am in, and I've been using that same box for like 5 years, okay? It's doing the job. Just something to help you out. Say you cut your finger, you get a hook in your finger, the Band-Aid will help. If you're bleeding bad, it'll stop it. All right, it's important. Number 6, and this is something that is probably often overlooked a ton when we start looking at people going offshore. You need to recognize your skill level. You need to recognize what you understand, what you don't understand. And hardest part about life is understanding that you don't know what you don't know. If you don't have much experience, you shouldn't be going offshore in the middle of wintertime to try to catch a blackfin tuna. If you can't flip your kayak over and get back into your kayak by yourself, you shouldn't be going in water deeper than 5 feet anyways, maybe 4 feet, okay? Because it is dangerous and it could cost you your life. Now, there's been instances recently in the last year or two offshore, people have been fortunate enough to have people come help them. But if no one is there, you're, for lack of better words, shit out of luck, okay? So if you aren't comfortable in your surroundings and you do not have the ability or the skill set, you need to practice and train yourself until you do. Getting back onto your kayak isn't an expert level thing. That should be the minimal level thing. If you can't re-enter your kayak, then you shouldn't put yourself in a dangerous situation. That goes with knowing the weather. Understanding weather patterns, understanding conditions, that's a skill set. That's not just a, okay, no, you learn what is okay and what isn't. Those are things to consider. Understand your skill set, act accordingly. Don't put yourself in a dangerous spot, okay? Now, let's look at, that's number 6. Let's move into number 7. And number 7 is be aware of overcrowded areas, right? So we'll use where we live for an example, but you guys can relate these things to where you live. Places like the Destin Pass or Crab Island, which is just a shallow area of water where lots of boaters go, they drink, they drive, they do all kinds of crazy stuff on jet skis, may not be the best place to go in a kayak, right? Especially on like Memorial Day weekend or maybe Labor Day or something like that. You shouldn't be there in your kayak. It's extremely crowded. You are just gonna get looked over. They're not even looking for you, okay? They're just going about their life. It's very easy for them to not see you. Maybe they are coming down a channel and you're coming out of the island and now a boat that's 35 foot runs you over. They don't even realize they did it, okay? So don't put yourself in a situation where you can only move at 3 miles per hour and you can't get away from it, okay? That stuff happens in overcrowded areas. Just avoid those, and probably forever. Your skill set shouldn't get good enough that you're confident enough to put yourself in danger because you can't control other people, all right? We will move back in. It's kind of the same thing, and it's keep your distance from other boats and respect other people's space, right? Hopefully they respect yours as well. If you see, you know, some people boating over there, just because you're in a kayak doesn't mean that you should go between them and the beach. Like say this fence line is the shoreline and there's a boat 30, 40 yards off the beach and they're fishing. Just because you're in a kayak and you know you can sneak around them, give them their space. Hopefully they'll respect yours the same way you respect theirs. And it's gonna stop you from running into issues and conflicts on the water. After all, you're in a kayak. So if you make a guy mad in a 21-foot pontoon boat, it just run you over, okay? So you don't have the upper hand. Be smart, be respectful. That's a pretty simple one, right? There's a lot of fishing space. Go somewhere else, okay? Number 9, we're gonna come into a leashing system. Now, I'm not a real big fan of leashing rods and reels, not this. I wouldn't wanna leash this gaff personally, but I do want you to leash, say you're in a paddle kayak and all you have is a paddle, one paddle. This paddle should be leashed to your kayak. It is your only means of propulsion. If you don't have that paddle, well, then you're kind of dead at sea, right? You're just out there without a motor. And it's happened in the past. Actually, there's a story of a guy within the last year who he dropped his paddle offshore and in Navarre, and he left his kayak to go to his paddle. That is a huge no-no. If you do drop your paddle, always stay with your kayak. Use your communication plan, call for help. Don't leave the kayak. That should be a whole bullet. We should have made another bullet. Bullet number 11, do not ever leave the kayak if you have a problem. But if you lose your only thing of propulsion, you are in trouble, right? So leash it. If you only have a paddle kayak, leash your paddle. If you, for some reason, bring or have a pedal system and you don't bring a paddle, that's kind of foolish too, because pedal drives fail, whether it's a Hobie, whether it's an Old Town, things happen. I know a guy who, I sold this gentleman a kayak when I worked at Broxton Outdoors, 5 years ago, and he was fishing to Santa Rosa Sound, and he, luckily, was with his wife, who he also bought a kayak for. He got fishing line wrapped in his prop. He took his prop off and dropped his prop through the drive hole, and now his pedal drive was dead, done in the water, and his wife had to tow him to shore. Thankfully, his wife was there. He would just be drifting across the sound. Obviously, pretty busy place. If someone would have found him, he could have waved someone down or used his phone to get a communication plan. If you only have a paddle, leash your paddle. If you only have a pedal drive, leash your pedal drive. If you only have one prop or one prop nut, bring a backup prop. Bring a backup. You need a plan, okay? I always carry a paddle, even with my pedal drive. My pedal drive is locked into the drive hole. Those are things to consider. There's a leash on the kayak to lock my drive up with a little leash. You don't want to be dead in the water. You're on your own, essentially, on the kayak, okay? So keep that in mind. The 10th one, because the paddle one was a bonus, right? The other paddle one was a bonus, is keep a close eye on your gear. It happens every single year in the spring in Navarre, and it's January, so it's coming, right? Someone will dust off their kayak that's been sitting in their garage. Maybe they sat it outside by their shed on the side, and it sat there for the last 4 months. It got down to 17 degrees here in Florida, in Navarre, Florida this year, right? Kayaks change shape. Maybe they got a crack in their kayak. They'll put their kayak out. They'll go out there in the Gulf of Mexico. Half hour later, like, wow, my kayak feels real tippy. It's not very stable, because they didn't check their gear. Your kayak is part of your gear. If you're not testing it, if you're not using it daily, you let it sit for a long time, you need to verify that that equipment is in one piece and you're good to go. If you don't, you're gonna run into issues. You don't want that. And that goes for your pedal drives. If you're using your Mirage drive for 3 years, your Mirage drive is 3 years old, and you've never once looked at a cable on it to make sure it's not gonna break in half, it's not very smart, okay? You need to inspect these things. You need to inspect your life jacket. One of the things about this is it has a CO2 cartridge. That CO2 cartridge can actually get corroded and not work, and that's actually a checklist for regulations. If there's corrosion on your CO2 cartridge, this life jacket doesn't even count as a life jacket in the eyes of FWC. Every law, every state will be different. We're not going to go into regulations in this video, just a lot to unpack, right? But that's it. That's 10 or 11 safety tips that, to a seasoned kayaker like myself, I don't really think about those things often. Those are just things that I wouldn't go do without having that calculation completed, right? But if you're new to this, go back, watch the video again, take your time. There's a lot to unpack. It will help you, it will keep you safe, and that is the goal at the end of the day. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. There are those 2 links in the description. Don't forget, this thing is 33% off if you're gonna buy a life jacket. At 66 bucks, it's a great deal for that, in my opinion. I love it. My wife and I both have them. That's what we use when we go. And that's that. If you guys have questions, leave a comment below. And we're giving that life jacket away, so leave a comment below no matter what. Tell us why you want the life jacket. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Have a good day.